Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a real privilege to be here and to be able to present to you about our journey, actually, from a first milk perspective. What I'm going to try and do is actually deliver on a couple of the expectations that you've given up there. So hopefully some inspiration, but maybe some new ideas as well. And really is to take this to, for everybody in this room to take away something to believe that agriculture can be part of the climate solution, which is certainly something that we believe, rather than necessarily being portrayed as the problem. So if I just go into, for the minutes, I can just explain a little bit about first milk, so I'm sure many of you will understand about the business, but just it's worthy of a memory jog. So we've got around 700 members, split more likely evenly between England, Scotland and Wales. And predominantly, they're mixed family farms, and I'll come on to give you some stats and about our members. We're really passionate about knowing about our members, because whilst we have assets in factories, we recognise as a business that our greatest asset are our members and the product that they actually produce, but also the actual stories that they enable us to tell. And the theme on stories will be coming through very strongly all the way through my presentation. 200 odd employees, and as I say, we handle 850 million litres of milk. So, and not all of that's produced from members. We do buy milk in as well. We're broadly speaking around 1 million litres per member. In terms of, very much, we're a business-to-business organisation. So in terms of, we don't trade directly with consumers at present, and we really, we have processing sites producing around 75,000 tonnes of cheese, and they're based, one in Aspatria, in Cumbria, the other in Pembrokeshire. We also, it's worthy of mentioning, the location of our farms are in more likely some of the best grass growing areas, not only in the country but in the world. So therefore, we believe that's our competitive advantage as far as a business. It's a bit like mentioning the troubles elsewhere, but as far as some time ago, first milk had some issues, but it's worthy of putting up and talking about in the last 5 years, and really is from the under the tenure of Sheila Hancock, and and I know when myself and Sheila talk about this, we kind of, it doesn't feel like 5 years. It doesn't feel as long, but there's an awful lot of changes happened within the business, and I won't read them all out. But as far as member volume has gone up by 25%. We've recruited over 200 million litres of new members, and necessarily that's not something that people would be aware of. Whereas in the past we've actually been losing members, but now it's very much a different way. That milk, has helped because our milk price, our relative competitive position now is far improved, along with the turnover is going up substantially. Not all of that has been derived from increased sales in the UK. One of the again, more likely it's remiss of us to actually shout about it, but it's not overly newsworthy, is we export, so the cheese sales export cheese sales have gone up considerably, and is now a significant proportion of our trade, with sales increasing by over 20%. The business is in a far stronger position, and and part of that is down and due to the support that we have with our members. And I think as far as we've transformed the way we've communicated with our members, and certainly working with our member council, we've improved that communication channels, which have enabled this all to happen. I think one of the best things for me is is we're actually now talking about, and members see a value within their co-op, so their investment is now that they're seeing that the net asset value of the business has also increased quite substantially, and they can freely trade shares within the business. And that enables them to actually, as to pass those assets on, or necessarily as trade them, throughout the dairy industry. I need to really tee up, and I don't want to be negative at all, really, but we have to accept is that dairy is under attack, and actually, whether we look at it from a perspective of the issues out there, there are individuals and organisations which would like to see the fact that no dairy farming take place at all. And the climate change is being used against us. I see this as something whereby there's no point in trying to criticise other aspects and say, well, okay, but look at almond milk and how bad that is. What we need to do is actually turn the table and sell the positives of what we're going to do. So as I say, I'm not going to concentrate on this. I think as far as what I'd like to spend more time on is saying how do we address it? Because it's not a time to hide. If there are practices we cannot defend within the industry, we need to change those practices or defend them, as the case may be. But if they're indefendable, we need to change. Every time there's an expose out there, some people will make a decision to stop using dairy products. And if they do that, they're gone often forever. So therefore, we need to go out and tell a positive story of what we can do about it. Because I believe in all of these areas, we can and be able to demonstrate that we've got answers. So it's a time for action. The climate change is not going to go away. We've seen a blip now in terms of with oil prices, etc. But make no bones about it, we have a climate emergency which will need addressing in time. It's no good to say, well, okay, we'll put all the environmental issues on hold now. We need to address this. In the same way as the consumers are voting with their feet. They're actually very responsive to the stories which I believe we have to tell. They are interested in where the food is coming from more than ever before. In one thing, if there has been come out of COVID, the people who are looking to seek out new food opportunities. You talk to anybody who has a farm shop. I've got a farm shop myself. Sales have boomed through this period. Home deliveries, many of these businesses have done exceptionally well because consumers are trying to seek out new offerings. That surely has got to present us all a great opportunity. So how does a business like ours, who's trading directly with business to business, how can we make a difference here? We started our first milk program several years ago, so it's probably over 3 years now. And recognising that unless we can address the issues and of consumers, we're likely to come under pressure in the future. I've got a friend a fictitious one, albeit is a Mrs. Smith in Croydon. And I like to say is that she's like Mrs. Smith in Croydon. If she drew a picture of a farm where she would like to buy, whether it's her eggs or milk, it would be a first milk farm. A traditional family farm that cares about these three aspects. So, and I believe that the pillars are all equally important. So the concept of building social capital, it's about being a part of a cooperative is part of that. And as Tim was saying before, it's within our nature to cooperate and be part of a community. And therefore, our members are pillars of the local community. We try and do the same with our factories to be very much community focused. We've also got a very successful Next Generation group with over 300 members now in our Next Generation group, recognising that they're the future, but they need different communication methods. We also have a Women in Agriculture group, again, it's a different communication methods, but also very helpful in terms of being able to get the message out there, it's so important. Animals, taking it beyond the RSPCA 5 freedoms, it's very important to the concept ensuring that an animal has a life worth living. And all of our members have actually signed a pledge to agree with this, and therefore have actually, so aspects such as no healthy animal will be euthanized on farm, but also cows will go out to graze if they, as part of the pledge. And then finally, actually, something that we'll concentrate more on now is about the earth, and actually as far as what we can do to actually to protect, but also protect and heal the planet. And I'll come on to tell you how we believe we can do that. So, net zero, one of the things that Tim asked is saying, what does net zero look like for us? Quite a bizarre, actually, slide from one respect. But what this shows is whilst we do an awful lot, so actually improve our emissions or reduce emissions in the factories, but also within the transportation, etc. If you look at it from a dairy perspective, of actually nearly 96% of the emissions in the product that we produce in cheese is actually as on-farm emissions. So therefore, of actually whilst we can do everything we like within the factory, unless we do something to reduce on-farm emissions, we're never going to achieve net zero. So therefore, our focus is actually has relied heavily on looking at the farm and and what we can do. And many people actually are negative and say, well, okay, we can't do anything about it. But that's where I would disagree. And actually, we have to address this in several ways. And actually, I'll come on to actually say how we're going to do it. But it's a big challenge. Actually, it's a big challenge, and it will mean that farming will be different in the future. So what have we done as a business? We've made a commitment, a public commitment, and we've gone out and we said we'll be net zero by 2040. So you can see the size of the task. It's 900,000 tonnes of carbon dioxide, CO2 equivalent that we need to remove by 2040. The majority of that is in the dairy industry. Sorry, in the dairy farmers' domain. One of the things we're doing is we're going to do 100,000 tonnes of carbon sequestered within the soil per year from 2025, and then that will increase after that. It sounds an awful lot, and it's but it will certainly help us on our way to actually to get to our net zero ambition. When you will look at the scale of what we're talking about, within First Milk we have over 100,000 hectares of land. So therefore, it becomes a smaller target when you look at it, actually, in per hectare terms. And then you look at the latest research, which is saying what can you sequester, and it is actually we're on target, I would suggest. Other aspects will need to be improved. Actually, in terms of we can't turn our back on other aspects. Milk from forage will be a key thing for us. Actually, reducing the imports. And the need to import protein from abroad is going to be another key aspect. Which is there's an awful lot of pressure from all customers saying, what are you doing to reduce soya usage? And it's not just whether it's sustainable soya, it's reducing soya usage per se. The carbon footprint, such as reducing, obviously those will come in terms of improving productivity on farm. Those productivities will be the good old basics, such as calving index, so actually age at first calving, etc. So those still the jobs to be done there. The processing, one of the easiest things that actually is to remove is to go to renewable fuel, which is that can be done very quickly, and it's a matter of just an additional cost, the same way as we're buying renewable electricity. And antibiotic usage. We mustn't take the eye off the ball. There are other aspects we need to address, and antibiotic usage and antimicrobial resistance is not gone away. It's not in the news just at the moment, but it is still an issue we need to address. How are we going to do all this, and particularly the sequestration? Regenerative agriculture, but more importantly, it's more than regenerative agriculture, it's regenerative thinking. It's thinking holistically. As far as now, you can have a regenerative factory, you can have a regenerative farm. We've even now come up with the concept of a regenerative cow. everything can be regenerative. And what it means is that you need to think about things when you're making changes, how it impacts other aspects. And it needs to be effectively is that you get more from less, which is like, and therefore it's often not product solutions. So you don't go and buy a product to become regenerative. You actually change systems. It needs to be holistic thinking. From a farming perspective, these principles, I won't go through them, but one of the key points, livestock integration, it's a great story. You need golden hooves out there on the land to actually sequester more carbon. So as far as, is that not a great opportunity for a livestock industry? Let's tell the story of actually as like how animals can actually help sequester and heal the planet. That's a far more positive story, surely, than going out and saying that we need a subsidy for and reduce the cost of fertiliser. All these other things, such as like, from a point of view of minimising soil disturbance, again, are all well tried and tested things to be able to either prevent the release of carbon from the soil or actually is like improving plant diversity, using the power of the sun, the leaves of the solar panels to get that and put basically carbon into the soil. Again, a great story to have. You can't do it without farming. It's just like you need to farm to do that. It's a more positive story than planting trees. So anyway, I'll stop ranting, but as far as there's so many things we can talk about with regenerative agriculture and make it a positive thing. So how do we go about it? I've got a picture over there of agricarbon. So we're doing some scientific measurement, taking soil samples to a metre depth, thousands of them. We've got a bigger sample now apparently than both anybody in the UK government, whether it's Scotland or England, to be able to work out how many tonnes of carbon is in the soil. So we get a baseline to be able to then measure it, to be able to say in 5 years' time, how much have we sequestered, to prove it scientifically. There's no point in wishing and hoping, we have to be able to prove it. We need to then also capture from our members what they're actually doing. So therefore we've developed a tool, which is like, so here on the right-hand side, it's a digital mapping tool for those who are First Milk members here, will have been working away at it, entering their current cropping, but also interventions, saying what those of these things they're doing. Does the land have livestock on it? How many months a year does it have a living root? It should have a living root on it 12 months of the year. Ideally, if it doesn't, minimise it by having cover crops, etc. So capturing that information allows us to be able to then calculate in the future, not this year, but it will enable us to capture in the future what we are sequestering and therefore be able to demonstrate what good we're doing for the planet. So I've covered this to a certain degree, but as far as whilst it is hard, some work to do in terms of administration, we've made it as simple as possible by being able to share the maps which various ministries have, and therefore that's the baseline, and then enter in the data. It's say cropping, which is like and what they're doing in terms of interventions, but also the amount of water courses, how many are protected, trees, hedges, so important to sequestration. And they're sat there sequestering carbon day in, day out. Nobody's recording it at the moment. In any published carbon footprint data at the moment, nobody takes into account this, which is crazy. But you need to be able to record it to be able to do that. So there's an opportunity there again, is to actually, and you cannot do that without information. We're also collecting data as far as baseline data, not just on the mapping, but also on feed and fertiliser usage, which are the biggest indicators or influences on carbon footprinting as well. So, what does it tell us? Actually, and I'm not going to read all of these out. As far as anybody who knows me or within the business, I just love data. Actually, I think we have to have knowledge about all of these things to actually be able to make it. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it, would be my motto as such as far as. So find out what is actually happening in the supply chain. So we know, which is our average 177 hectares, most of it's down to dairy. As far as we've got the information on the beef animals, sheep, etc. An awful lot have got actually is which is like, renewables, which is like, so 27% of our farms have renewable energy. We've got 69% of permanent pasture of the 91% grassland. Of that, 66% of the grassland has more than 3 species. The more plant diversity, you're actually enabling the better solar panels, so different solar panels, to be able to capture the sun's rays, and also different root depths enables it to put it down deeper into the soil, a good way to capture carbon. So having this information is important. Quite a lot of them process their own milk. Most have got a next generation planned and in place, which is like, which again is really important. And there's a positive story, which is like, it's very positive. They graze on average 6.4 months a year. 3.7 workers on the farm, significant employers. You add it all up, which is like, it's massive. So this information is what enables us to collect. By itself, it's worth nothing. But put together, it actually enables us to build stories. So an awful lot of importance there, which is like collaborating right away across, which is like the supply chain. How have we got member engagement? Because we're not getting stones thrown at us actually when we go to meetings and we're telling people about this. We've actually, for quite the opposite. People understand is that the dairy industry is under attack. This enables us to be able to say, this is to protect and promote your business. So therefore, we've actually got, I would say, got very good support. 95% of our members have signed the pledge. We'll have 90% of people who are actually completing the regen plans, by the 1st of April. It's bringing it to life in terms of doing on-farm workshops. Nothing better than going out there and digging a pit to just over 1 metre depth and going and seeing and showing somebody that there's actually a worm cast about sort of like 1 metre down. That's what's actually happening in the biology. Show how deep roots can go to give the principles. Things people wouldn't do normally. But once they've seen it, which is like, it's fantastic. We've done the Regen Cow workshops last week, and we had people there actually again from SRUC, but as far as there was a vet there, Dr. Whittle, or Dr. Doolittle as she likes to be called, explaining about how actually dung beetles are so important. And she's there going like this and doing an explanation, and trying to say this is what a dung beetle's antenna looks like. So passionate about it, but explaining to members why actually the use of worm is actually so important, how that can actually help sequester. So it's actually getting out there, mixing with the members, and every one of them has got experiences they can share with others. So it's actually peer-to-peer learning, farmer to farmer, far better than somebody like myself just standing up. We can facilitate those group meetings, and that's what we intend to do. Measuring performance, which is like, coming as far as here. I think it's so important that we basically make a public commitment. So we've signed up to to reach net zero as an SME, because that's the way we're classified as, and therefore, but it's a public commitment, and we've got targets which we have to meet. Really important. It shines a spotlight on it in order to be able to say, okay, we're going to achieve this. And actually, it's like, if you believe you can or you can't, you're right, aren't you? So we can achieve this, and we will. In the same way as measuring it, it's just like, Ecovadis is an example, but there are others out there, whereby you get measurements from external people to say on a sustainability rating, and this is about supply chains and ethics, etc. So external verification, I think, is important. Our carbon footprint this year in our annual accounts will be verified externally in terms of, to say, yes, it is actually as he said, very important. So just to summarise, I think really it is, let's not forget, this is a climate emergency. This has not gone away just because, which is like, what's happening now, here and now. We do need to do something to address it. And I think everybody in the industry, which is like, it can actually do something about this. Having a plan, you can't do anything without a plan. It's just like, it's so important. The ability to be able to measure that as well, actually, like to quantify it over time, again, is so important. I think as far as it cannot it's not seen as a cost of actually, like, the cost of our sustainability or regeneration program is minuscule. And actually, most times we actually see that we will save money rather than cost money. Which is like, it's a different way of thinking, and therefore it's something we should do. The opportunity to collaborate, it's something, as I said, it's in our nature to do so. And within this room, actually, it's like, again, with like-minded people, it's actually good fun, and actually, it's like, and it gives you a real good focus to be able to develop the business. I think in terms of cooperatives, certainly should lead the way. When you often put up a summary slide, people think that's the last one, but I've got another one, so I'm sorry about this, but this is the last one. I think for what next? What next for First Milk? But it's like, so we've been building, actually, it's like, I would say a story over time. And actually, it's like, I believe that we've got something out there, not just that we can tell Mrs. Smith, but we can go out wider and further afield to actually just tell stories. And tell stories about what farmers are actually doing to heal the planet. So therefore, what I would ask you, so actually is like, is to join with us, as I can also go out there and tell stories, tell the fantastic stories that we have as an industry. So it's actually, I thank you very much.